What if I told you West Virginia has 51 fishing spots that most anglers don't even know exist? As a West Virginia native, I've spent years exploring fishing spots across the country. But when I lived in West Virginia, I had a handful of spots I went to all the time, and I overlooked virtually all of these hidden fishing gems. Now that I'm retired, I'm planning on exploring all the fishing West Virginia has to offer. From mountain streams holding native brook trout to massive rivers with record-breaking catfish and musky, West Virginia offers just about everything a freshwater angler could hope for. So if you want to discover fishing spots that will absolutely blow your mind, watch the entire video. Okay, so the first thing, before you go fishing in a new state, you need to make sure you have a fishing license. It's not worth the risk. Plus, the cost of your license goes to things like conservation and stocking programs that make the fishing a lot better. So in West Virginia, like most states, you can get either a non-resident license or a resident license. Now, to get a resident license, you have to live in West Virginia. So I think for the bulk of us, we're talking about non-resident licenses. West Virginia's licenses run for the calendar year. Some states run for a 12-month rolling period, but West Virginia is a calendar year. So you might as well just buy it in January if you're going to go down there. I get the annual license. Annual license for non-resident is $37. You have to pay a $13 non-resident conservation fee, which takes it to $50. And then if you want to do trout fishing in any of the stock trout waters, and I'm going to be talking about a lot of those, the non-resident trout fishing is another $16. So you're talking $66 to get your West Virginia license. But to me, I think that's fantastic. Now, the only other non-resident fishing license that I see in West Virginia is a one-day license, and it's $3. So I'm sure you can get multiple days. If you're going to be there 3 or 4 days, you can pay $3 and per day and fish that way. So that's an option. I'll have the West Virginia website listed down below, and so you can just go right online and buy your license. So as far as fishing regulations, basically West Virginia has the things that they have is they have minimum lengths, they have maximum creel, or the most you can take, and the number that you can have in your possession. And so like for black bass, they talk about smallmouth, largemouth, spotted all together. You can keep 6 a day, but you can only have a maximum of 12 in your possession. So if you're going on a 3-day fishing trip, you can't keep 18. Not that a lot of us keep bass, but it's just that's the top line. Trout, same thing. You can keep 6 any one day, and you can only have 12 total in your possession. And then they've got all the other stuff. I tell you what, West Virginia doesn't, as far as I've seen, always do your own homework, because you're the one getting the ticket, right? But West Virginia doesn't have seasons like most states that I've been in. So you can fish for bass year round, you can fish for trout year round. They have some special regulations like catch and release and stuff. You know, some special waters have their own designations, but general seasons, they don't control the seasons nearly as much as many. And in fact, they don't have many crazy regulations at all. So what's one of the craziest regulations you've come across either while you're traveling or in your state? Leave a comment below. I'd like to hear that. Now, in addition to getting your license, I want to talk about safety. Safety is the most important thing. We want to make sure that we're out there to fish tomorrow as well. It's not just about today. So if you're fishing alone, make sure someone knows where you are and when you plan to return. Maybe give them a float plan if you're kayaking. Also kayaking, make sure you wear a PFD. Make sure you're not going into any whitewater, because there are plenty of whitewater sections on some of the rivers that I'm going to mention in this video. If you want to do a whitewater fishing float, I've even found one that does a 2-day overnight trip, there are plenty of guides out there. The new and Gauley River Adventures is one that I know of to make that happen. I'll link them down below as well. So if we look at the top 51 fishing locations that I've identified, we can see they're spread all over the state. You know, down in the mountain section, there's definitely a cluster that's really good for trout fishing. So we've got a couple spots in the northern panhandle, we've got a couple over in the eastern panhandle. We have a few down here in the southern part of the state as well. Again, a lot of these do follow a few of the major rivers in West Virginia and their tributaries to that. Some of them are in the mountains. But West Virginia has it all. It has rivers, creeks, streams, and some decent sized lakes. Some of the scenery, it's just going to make you forget you're even on the relatively densely populated East Coast. West Virginia is absolutely amazing. I think there's a reason they call it almost heaven. And I think for fishermen, that's exactly what it is. It's almost heaven. Okay, so I'm not going to share all 51 locations. This is just going to take way too long. But I did write a blog post detailing all of these out, complete with the map that you just saw, and various links to make your trip a success. So you can check that out at aaronhunt.net, and of course I'll link it below. But in this video, I'm going to cover some of the highlights, like the must-do. If you're only going to hit a few in West Virginia, these are the spots that you want to hit. Let's jump into it. Cheat Lake. Some people would call this a smallmouth bass paradise. It's nestled in northern West Virginia near Morgantown. Cheat Lake offers exceptional fishing opportunities. It's 1,730 acres. It's renowned for just this huge smallmouth bass population, many catches over 4 pounds. But it's got a lot of It's got a lot of largemouth bass and walleye as well. And honestly, it's just great for all-around multi-species fishing. I believe the state record channel catfish was caught there in 2005, around 32 pounds. It's near Morgantown, West Virginia, so there's plenty of major city conveniences, although honestly West Virginia doesn't have many major cities that most of us may be used to. There's a lot of things to do down in Morgantown. So the second place I want to talk about is Summersville Lake. Now this is sometimes called the Little Bahamas on the east. It's got very clear waters. It's hugely popular with scuba divers. But Summersville Lake is West Virginia's largest lake. It's 2,700 acres. It's an excellent walleye fishery, but it has huge populations of smallmouth bass, largemouth bass, and rock bass. Beyond fishing, the lake is famous for these towering limestone cliffs, and like I said, it's got amazing scuba diving opportunities as well. Summersville Lake was one of those places that we used to stop with my grandparents when we would travel down south every summer, so it's kind of special to me. The next one we want to talk about is the New River. It's part of the New River Gorge system, and it's kind of ironic because the New River is one of the oldest rivers in North America, but here's the thing, it offers world-class smallmouth bass fishing. The section within the New River Gorge National Park has produced numerous trophy smallmouth bass, well over 5 pounds. The river also holds an impressive population of flathead catfish and musky. Adventures on the Gorge and Ace Adventure Resort, they offer luxury accommodations with river access, and they'll give you guided fishing and float trips as well. And here's the thing, the iconic New River Gorge Bridge, it provides an amazing backdrop for anglers. As a bonus, it's a national park that you might not have checked off your bucket list. How many of those 63 U.S. national parks have you been to? Honestly, I've only been to 6. This is one of them, but it's one of the things that Kristen and I plan to do with some of our travels after she retires at the end of this year. Okay, next is the Ohio River. The mighty Ohio River, it forms West Virginia's western border with Ohio and Kentucky and provides some of the state's most diverse fishing opportunities. This is the water that I grew up on. This water produces just all kinds of different species. Now, when I was growing up, hybrid stripers were all over the place. Those seem to have died off a little bit, but there's a ton of catfish. You can catch some walleye. White bass can be amazing. Smallmouth, largemouth. I don't recall ever catching a spotted bass in the Ohio River, but I'm not saying that they're not there. Again, it's such a big body of water. The river's navigation dam system creates these pools, especially below some of the dams, that are excellent habitat for sauger, walleye, like I said, white bass, smallmouth bass. There's also some giant freshwater drum and carp if you're into those species. And if you visit the Hannibal Locks and Dams near New Martinsville, where I grew up, if you go in September, not only is the fishing action hot, but the boat racing may be too. They have a vintage hydroplane regatta right at the end of August, beginning of September, and then they have an APBA national points race called the Regatta Fest at the last weekend of September, which often determines the North American Championship, and 2025 is no exception. This stretch of water on the Ohio River in New Martinsville is known as the fastest freshwater course in the world due to the countless records that have been set there, and they continue to be broken. Okay, the next place we want to talk about is the Elk River. It's known as West Virginia's premier trout stream, and the Elk River is a fly fishing paradise. The tailwaters below the Sutton Dam, they maintain cool temperatures year-round, so it supports a thriving population of rainbow and brown trout. There are often catches of browns exceeding 10 pounds in that location. The river held the previous state record for rainbow trout at 13 pounds. And as a plus, Webster Springs, a charming little town along the river, offers several bed and breakfasts. It can be a really good place to stay. But being a popular spot, you're probably not going to have the Elk River to yourself. Okay, next, let's talk about the Gauley River. The Gauley River is world-renowned for whitewater rafting. It also offers exceptional fishing opportunities, though. The river holds a healthy population of smallmouth bass, rock bass, and walleye, especially in those deeper pools. There are people who have done floats down the Gauley and caught over 100 smallmouth in one trip. Adventures on the Gorge Resort, they provide some luxury accommodations in that area with absolutely stunning river views. They also provide guided trips, and I'm sure there are a ton of fishing guides if you want to go that route. And if you're into whitewater rafting, could be something fun for the entire family. You know, you've got Ace Adventure Resort as well. Okay, and finally, just topping off some of these hot spots, the Shenandoah River. This river offers some of the finest smallmouth bass fishing in the eastern United States. It's got these amazing clear waters, rocky bottom, just incredible habitat all over for these hard fighting smallmouth. On my recent fishing trip just below Harper's Ferry, I was amazed at how beautiful the river is. Plus, it was my best day of smallmouth fishing for the entire year. The river's, I mean, it's just filled with these ledges and pools and submerged boulder fields. It's literally one of the best smallmouth fisheries I've ever come across. Particularly in the summer months, if you can find them in those deep holes, and they just, you can catch 17 in a matter of 30 minutes. That's just what we did. So there are also some red breast sunfish, rock bass, the occasional musky. Spring and fall are typically the most productive fishing there. But here's the thing, the river's path, it takes it through West Virginia's eastern panhandle, and it winds through a landscape that's rich in Civil War history, with Harper's Ferry National Historical Park right there on the river. This point is also close to where the Shenandoah meets the Potomac. So as you float or wade the river, you're going to pass beneath historic bridges and past limestone cliffs that have witnessed centuries of American history. For me, I think it's something everybody has to experience. So next, let's talk about the Cheat River. So this was historically a polluted, just absolutely devoid of life river. It had acid mine runoff, had no aquatic life, but restoration and reclamation efforts have proven successful, and it's turning into a great smallmouth fishery, especially in the lower sections. And there are tons of forks in the upper section that produce excellent trout fishing. Blackwater Fork, Shavers Fork, Dry Fork, Glady Fork, Laurel Fork. Shavers Fork near Elkins is probably the most heavily fished stream in West Virginia, but it's also one of the most heavily stocked, and that's because it's excellent fishing. Some of the smaller tributaries along the Cheat River support wild brook trout populations. You know, as fishermen, I think a lot of us are focused on conservation, and it's great to see an entire river system that's essentially been reclaimed. This was unfishable territory before, and now it produces great places for us to catch fish. So if you can support the businesses, support that area, I think it's a great thing to do. And keep in mind, 30 or 40 years ago, there were no fish there. So it just shows what's possible in a relatively short amount of time. Okay, all of these places that I just talked about, they're really well known, right? So let's talk about a few hidden gems. Now, I'm not going to spot burn and give away places that, you know, nobody knows about. All of these places are pretty well documented, but I don't think people realize how good the fishing is in West Virginia. So the first hidden gem, a place called the Jug. It's on Middle Island Creek. This is actually really close to where I grew up. Middle Island Creek is West Virginia's longest creek, and it offers excellent fishing opportunities. It is an amazing musky fishery and nursery. You're not likely to challenge a state record in this section, but the possibility of catching many muskie on one trip does exist. And plus it's a circular float, so it's perfect for solo kayaking, even if it's a little difficult to navigate. Now I will say that this has been a great muskie spot for generations. This is not something new. My great-grandfather had a cabin near this stretch and had caught many muskie back in the day as well. So I got to take a trip out there personally and sort of get my first one. Maybe I'll make my grandfather proud. So another hidden gem, there's a ton of trout fishing in Tucker and Randolph counties around Davis, West Virginia. So this area is the beginning of the Cheat River watershed that I talked about before. So this is a place where you can make a weekend trip, hit 4, 5, 6 different places, maybe even a longer trip. And if you do, you may want to check out the Laurel River Club Bed and Breakfast. They're in about the middle of it all. The Dry Fork of the Cheat River flows right through their property, and they do have this awesome dome tent that you can stay in. Stay tuned because I'm planning on going. I'm not going to pass this one up. Tag a buddy who needs to see some of these secret locations. Or don't, keep them to yourself. So West Virginia has the 3rd highest percentage of forest cover in the United States. Nearly 80% of the state is forested, and nestled in those forests are literally dozens of amazing fishing locations. Maybe hundreds. If you've never been, you owe it yourself to take a wild and wonderful vacation. And if you're a West Virginia native, I'm sure I didn't give away your secret spots. But to see the entire list of 51 places that I plan on fishing in West Virginia, head over to my blog at aaronhunt.net. I'll leave the link in the description directly to that article. If this was helpful, hit the thumbs up so YouTube can show you more videos like this one. And I plan on doing this breakdown for several states, so stay tuned for the next state fishing overview. I wonder what's next. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, maybe on the water and maybe in West Virginia.